It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, breaking news. Sky News finds more damning emails in the Epstein Files, this time involving the King. Jeffrey Epstein blamed Charles on the day Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lost his UK trade envoy job, saying, "I assume he knows this was his doing." Also tonight, energy prices are coming down, but is it as good as it seems? Household energy prices will fall by 7% from April, in a move hailed as welcome relief, but bills remain far above pre-pandemic levels. Councils report seeing a big rise in the number of people treating our street corners as rubbish tips and saying it's not just criminal gangs. Plus, the story of 15-year-old Harley Harris, born with a rare medical condition and in a desperate race against time to fund life-saving surgery. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Well, we begin tonight with that breaking news. Sky News can now bring you, for the first time, emails that have been found in the Epstein Files, which appear to show the dead paedophile financier blaming Charles, King Charles, for Andrew's removal as trade envoy. Well, the brief exchange is dated from the 21st of July 2011, the day after it was announced the then prince would step down from his trade role. Epstein writing, "I assume he knows that this is Charles's doing." That was in response to a message from an associate who said, "Lots of TV coverage on PA and always big feature on you. Insane." Sky News believes PA refers to Prince Andrew. Well, let's speak now to royal correspondent for news.com.au, Bronte Coy. Bronte, big development this, the first time we've heard Charles, not of course King then, but King now, mentioned in the Epstein Files.
Yes, absolutely. And a few weeks on from the Epstein Files drop, which was millions of files in there, it's an incredible find from Sky News because, as you mentioned, this is the first time that Charles has been mentioned by name in there, and it is a significant development. Now, Epstein refers to the fact that he believed that it was Charles's fault that Andrew had stepped down from that trade envoy role. At the time, he did so because, as he said, it was because there was public scrutiny over some of his ties to certain figures, Epstein being one of them. And so clearly Epstein was taking a very strong interest in the coverage surrounding that. But to bring Charles in at that point and at a time when the royal family is just trying so hard to distance themselves from Andrew and the Epstein scandal, this is bringing them right back into the story, although there's no allegation of wrongdoing here at all. And if anything, Epstein appears to not be a fan of Charles from that email. At the same time, it does bring them in on the story once again. And Charles has been making it very clear that he will be transparent throughout this process and he will be helping out in any way to show that they are happy to answer questions where they need to. But here we're in a situation where his name's being brought up again and there may need to be more transparency down the line.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the word transparency, and that has been a criticism in recent weeks of the former Prince Andrew's role as trade envoy. So many questions as to how he was qualified for that role, how he applied. I mean, was there an application process or was given that role? And, you know, how much pressure the royal family may or may have not exerted on his appointment and his dismissal. We are promised by the UK government that documents are going to be released relating to the appointment of Andrew. But again, it just feeds into that need for answers to those big questions that we, quite frankly, have up until now never dared ask, let alone get the answers to.
You're exactly right. And hearing some of the strong language that was being used in the Commons yesterday regarding Andrew, it does show that we are now in and I dare to use this word once again, unprecedented territory when it comes to discussions around the royal family. And as you say, there's no allegation that the King or Prince Charles, as he was back then, has acted in a way that was wrong. But at the same time, it does ask questions. And people want to know now, they want to go right back and comb through those files, which we are told we will get. But to find out exactly what went on with that appointment and then ultimately why he left the role and what was going on behind closed doors there, because there's this level of trust that needs to exist with the royal family, and that's how they do exist. The public trusts them, and that's why they continue with taxpayer-funded lives. But when there are questions being asked, these are lines of inquiry that are going to now continue as these emails and details keep on coming up.
Yeah, Bronte, does it feel to you that this will be a bit of a shift in how the royal family proceeds, in terms of, we hear that phrase, never complain, never explain, and, you know, the feeling is amongst the public and perhaps politicians now that that is wearing a little thin, and politicians in the UK have had a very hands-off approach to the royal family up until now. Do you feel this is going to be a real shift, or is it perhaps a one-off? Because, of course, Andrew now effectively no longer royalty.
Well, that's it. And that goes to the King trying to put that very strong distance between the family and Andrew. And he did so back in October with that very firm statement and stripping Andrew of his titles. But you're exactly right. There has already been a significant tonal shift, even just in the way that the royal family, Andrew in particular, is being discussed in the Commons, as I mentioned. But never complain, never explain worked for a very long time for the royal family, but they clearly know now that it has not worked in recent months, because they are doing a lot of explaining. We did get that statement from the King last year. We did get that statement from him last week, as with the extraordinary development of his brother being arrested. We had a statement from the Prince and Princess of Wales early last week, and Prince Edward. Now, you wouldn't have expected in previous times and in previous scandals for there to be that level of response, but clearly they understand that we are in an era where right now there do need to be some explanations. There has to be transparency, because, again, it goes back to the heart of their very existence, which is that the public needs to be able to trust them. And there has been some damage done to that trust by one member of the family for a variety of reasons over the years. But now at this point, they're trying to rebuild that. And the best way they can do that is to be transparent.
Yeah, Bronte, just a reminder to those who may just be joining us, Sky News has been, like many other journalists and organisations, trawling through the millions of Epstein files that were released, the latest release from the Department of Justice in America. And it has come to our attention this evening that Jeffrey Epstein wrote an email about Charles, we presume to be King Charles, essentially blaming him back in 2011 for Prince Andrew stepping down as trade envoy. Of course, this is written allegedly by Epstein, no communication from Prince Andrew that we can see in this email chain, or indeed the Charles mentioned. This is very much about the royal family, nothing to do with them. And as you quite rightly pointed out, being mentioned in the Epstein Files does not mean any wrongdoing. But this just goes to show, doesn't it, weeks later from the release of these latest files, there is still more in there to be found.
Definitely, and that's clearly something the royal family is aware of. I think they've been bracing for it for some time. And again, not with allegations of wrongdoing to do with them, but with things that may come out around Andrew and these emails. And as you say, it just keeps on happening because there is so much to go through. And interestingly, with the appointment of Andrew as the UK Special Envoy for Trade, it was reported around the time that Charles, then Prince Charles, wasn't that keen on the appointment to begin with, because his brother had retired from the Navy and he thought he had a bit of a reputation as the Playboy Prince. Now, that is just some of the reports that were around at the time. So again, it will be interesting to see if we do find out when these documents are released around his appointment, how much more information we get about how exactly that all came to pass.
Bronte, thank you for coming on to respond to this breaking news. Bronte Coy there, royal correspondent for news.com.au. Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you. Right, meanwhile, there have been more developments today on the arrest of Peter Mandelson, the Speaker of the House of Commons telling MPs that he was the one that passed information on to police suggesting that Mandelson could be a flight risk. Well, it comes after lawyers for Peter Mandelson complained about the decision to arrest him on Monday as part of their probe into misconduct in public office allegations.
Members will be aware of comments in the media regarding the arrest of Lord Mandelson. To prevent any inaccurate speculation, I'd like to confirm that upon receipt of information that I felt it was relevant, I passed this on to the Metropolitan Police in good faith, as is my duty and responsibility. It is regrettable this rapidly ended in the media, as this is a live investigation. Members will understand that it would not be appropriate to make any further comment, and I'd like to caution members from doing so.
Well, this evening, the Metropolitan Police apologised to Lindsay Hoyle over the arrest, a spokesperson saying that the Met has apologised to the Speaker of the House of Commons this afternoon for inadvertently revealing information during an investigation into allegations of misconduct in public office. To other news now, and it's not often that we talk about the cost of living dropping, but today it was announced that annual energy bills will fall by £117 for millions of households from this April. Good news? Certainly sounds like it, but the Prime Minister was quick to celebrate the cut.
The news this morning, Mr Speaker, 7 a.m, energy bills coming down by £117 for millions of families and young people struggling. That's guaranteed money off bills in April, driven by the action that this Labour government has taken. We promised to cut the cost of living. We are cutting the cost of living.
However, this might not be quite the win it seems. Even with this cut, prices are still far higher than when Sir Keir Starmer took office, promising to cut energy bills. They're still higher than pre-pandemic levels, and the forecast doesn't look good for any more reductions. Let's take a look at some of the details. The regulator Ofgem announcing that the average bill for households will drop by 7%. That's the equivalent to around £117 annually per household. It means that between April and June, the typical dual fuel bill will fall to £1,641 per year, down from nearly £1,800. And compared to the level between April and June last year, it's a fall of £208, which is 11%. Let's speak now to Jonathan Bean, who is a spokesperson for Fuel Poverty Action. Jonathan, good of you to join us tonight to discuss this. You heard it there being celebrated in the House of Commons. Were you cheering as loudly?
Well, it's a pretty small reduction, as you said, about £10 a month. And even after this change, it's going to be £600 a year more than 5 years ago. So obviously that's having a huge impact on many, many families. And as you said, still higher than the election where we were all promised £300 bill saving by Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband. So really it's a very small improvement in a situation that's really bad. And in fact, this reduction was driven mainly off taking a couple of costs off the bills. One of them was the Eco4 retrofit scheme that was very unsuccessful. So these are kind of one-off changes that can't really be repeated. So the outlook doesn't really look very good for actually delivering that £300 bill saving.
Yeah, you know this issue inside out. What other levers, this issue inside out, what other levers could the government be pulling to bring people's energy bills down?
Well, the biggest chunk is actually profit. So analysis suggests that up to £500 of our bill can be profit. And a lot of that profit is actually hidden in places that people are less aware of. For example, the national grid, the people that own the pylons, the major pylons in the country, they have a very, very high profit margin. And that money goes to offshore investors, people like BlackRock. So there's a lot of profit in the system that government and Ofgem haven't really focused on. So that's really where they need to focus now.
In terms of people today looking at this and thinking, OK, over the course of the year, I'm going to save this much money. As we've discussed, as I outlined in the figures, it's small beans compared to what people were paying pre-pandemic. We used to talk about shopping around, switching energy providers. I feel that the impetus has gone out of that because people are just accepting of the fact that it's so much more expensive now. However, is there merit in shopping around still? Can people get cheaper bills by doing that and swapping their energy providers? Or is that just not an option now?
You can save a bit of money by taking a fixed rate. Typically, those are less than the standard Ofgem tariffs. There's a bit of a saving there. There are bigger savings to be made for those people that are quite sophisticated in the way they use energy. So time of use tariffs. People that have EVs actually get electric vehicles, get very good rates. And that's because we do actually generate a lot of cheap electricity, but typically we're charged about 4 times more for electricity than gas. So basically electric prices are a bit of a rip-off. But for those people with electric vehicles, they can actually get very cheap energy. So there's definitely some good deals there. We see that as very unfair, though, because people, for example, with storage heaters who are typically on lower incomes don't get the same low prices that those more affluent households get. So in general, there's a lot of unfairness in the system. So prices should be much lower, but also they need to be a lot fairer.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? A lot of the measures that are talked about in terms of how people can reduce their bills, they're things like insulation, smart meters, grants for solar panels. But, you know, those that are suffering most from high bills and trying to reduce their energy costs, it's not really going to help them, is it?
Well, this is the problem. It's very complicated for a lot of people, the people that need help most. That's why we actually propose something called Energy for All, which is like a universal guarantee for everyone that would therefore protect those more vulnerable groups. And actually 660,000 people signed this petition that we took to Keir Starmer. But we're not really seeing yet any movement from the government to actually provide more of a general energy guarantee for everyone. So there's a lot of people falling through the cracks, and several million people are still in fuel poverty, and thousands of people sadly actually die in cold homes every winter. So it just shows how unfair the system is, how cruel it is, and how dangerous it is having energy that is not affordable.
Yeah. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on to highlight that issue in the wake of what is being seen as a win. Small win for many, not a win at all for millions, as you've pointed out. Jonathan Bean there, spokesperson for Fuel Poverty Action. Thank you for your time tonight. And now, is the UK facing a national fly tipping epidemic? It's something we've covered extensively here on the UK Tonight. Over the last few months, we've been reporting about the growing number of illegal waste dumps that have been springing up right across the country, from Wigan to the M25. But it's not just the illegal dumping by criminal gangs that's growing. Councils say that they're actually seeing a big rise in general fly tipping. Here's our climate reporter, Victoria Seabrook.
If you fly tip, this is what the government wants you to think will happen. This van was caught in Brent and now is being crushed. The government is encouraging councils to seize more vehicles caught in the act. But is it enough? New figures reveal fly tipping last year jumped to 1.26 million cases, the highest on recent records. And even those figures are an underestimate because they only include cases on public land, meaning tips on farms and elsewhere go unreported. And while many cases are investigated, very few lead to penalties like fines or prosecution. Brent was once dubbed the fly tipping capital of England after recording 35,000 incidents in a single year. And it's still easy to see why.
See all this rubbish all over the place, people throwing their old mattresses, and it's an eyesore. I'm embarrassed to get people to come and visit me.
As the council tries to reclaim the streets, we joined its enforcement officers on the hunt for clues about where the rubbish came from.
You can clearly see there was a delivery label inside. Unfortunately, look at what people do just to take it off.
Her luck shifts in the next street.
And this time we do have an address.
Many people don't realise that the onus is on them to check that whoever they're paying to take away their waste has a licence.
Driving around, seeing waste in front of someone's garden, for example, they would go, knock on the door and offer to pick up the waste for a way lower price. So people jump at the occasion of paying less money. They will be the ones, unfortunately, who will get the fixed penalty notice.
And if you felt like England is just, well, a bit rubbish at tackling this, you're not alone.
That is the problem. There's no jeopardy. And, you know, we see examples all the time, to be honest, people who clearly are doing it on multiple, but even if they get caught, they get £1,000 fine at most. For them, that's just the cost of business. You know, they'll make that up in a day and a half or something like that at most. So they'll just go out and they'll go and do it again. That's the problem. There needs to be a sense of real risk and jeopardy. And at the moment, the deterrents just aren't there. Councils are not enforcing the law in the way they should be doing.
The government says it is cracking down on waste crime, boosting powers and funding. But as long as the fly tipping figures go in the wrong direction, it is the public paying to clean up the mess. Victoria Seabrook, Sky News.
A former head gamekeeper has been found guilty of the shotgun murder of an ex-colleague. David Campbell coldly gunned down Brian Lowe on a remote track near Aberfeldy in Perthshire in February 2024. The case was mired in controversy after Police Scotland initially treated the death as a medical event, despite having 30 shotgun pellet injuries on his face. Our Scotland correspondent Colin Gillis has more.
Aberfeldy runs on rhythm. Familiar faces, familiar roads. Here, strangers are noticed.
You don't get a lot of crime in Aberfeldy, let alone murders.
And then, in 2024, everything shifted. 65-year-old Brian Lowe was found dead, blood on his body, shot.
So it's what police officers would term a whodunit. He's been shot on quite a rural path. It's an ambush. And look at it. You've got a great view down the road to make sure there's no one coming. You knew the noise wouldn't be that much of an issue because we've got a lot of shooting here.
There's not a soul around.
This has been a well-planned execution. It's not just a murder, he's executed.
In a place unaccustomed to violence, assassination was not the first assumption. The truth came days later, not on this path, but in a mortuary. When the body bag was opened, shotgun pellets fell out. Murder had been missed. Officers wrongly believed Brian had fallen and injured himself. A blunder never seen before.
So we've taken steps to learn from that. Like I said, we've reviewed policies and procedures, particularly around attendance at unexplained deaths.
How, though, can you train someone not to spot a gunshot wound? Is that not basic?
Yeah, like I say, there's we acknowledge there was failings at the beginning of the investigation.
I remember as the manhunt continued here, there was a reluctance to speak. This was a community scared because ultimately the killer remained at large for several months. But during those conversations, there was a similar theme. One name kept coming up time and time again, and that was David Campbell. And ultimately, people led us to this house here on the outskirts of the town centre. So we went and approached the door, had a conversation with someone inside, and was very quickly told we were not welcome. And he did have something to hide. Campbell shut down his CCTV system hours before the shooting. He put duct tape over his camera doorbell and used his wife's electric bike on the journey to kill. Rehearsed that route the year before. Months later, he was arrested, handcuffed naked on the toilet.
He'll have chosen his optimum point to capture Brian here, that there's no escape.
And this is where it all began. The sweeping, wealthy Edradynit shooting estate above the village. Years earlier, Brian Lowe worked here as a groundsman. David Campbell was the gamekeeper. A professional relationship soured, disagreements hardened into resentment. They had not spoken in years. Why that moment?
How long has this been festering in his mind? He's become an old man. He's had this grudge that's gone on, as we know, for decades, and he's settled a score.
The murder weapon was never found. Undoubtedly disposed of by you along with other incriminating items, in calm and calculated efforts to conceal your crime and remove any evidence in its immediate aftermath. It may be that given serious errors in the early stages of police inquiries, you thought initially that you had literally got away with murder. If so, you were wrong.
And then there's those who were threatened by Campbell as far back as 1995.
He said across to me as we passed, it's great the vermin you see when you haven't got a gun. So
that was a threat to shoot, was it?
It was a veiled threat, probably. As soon as I heard it was a shooting and the victim was somebody from Edradynit Estate, I immediately thought of David Campbell. Evil. Definitely evil.
Today, Aberfeldy appears unchanged, but places absorb what happens within them. Police say they've reflected and learned from mistakes. But the hardest truth is that danger was never passing through. It was always here. Revenge that came quietly up the country path. Conor Gillis, Sky News in Aberfeldy.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, why little-known changes to UK passport rules could have a big impact on many Brits living abroad.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
The BBC has announced a fast-tracked investigation into the broadcast of a racial slur during its BAFTAs coverage. A guest with Tourette's shouted the N-word when two black actors were on stage at the award ceremony. It was explained afterwards that this was an involuntary tic, but the moment was not edited out of the BBC One broadcast, which was shown on a 2-hour delay, and the incident remained on the BBC iPlayer on Monday morning. Today, the BBC released this statement. The BBC has been reviewing what happened at the BAFTAs on Sunday evening. This was a serious mistake, and the Director-General has instructed the Executive Complaints Unit to complete a fast-tracked investigation and provide a full response to complainants. Well, in the last few moments, the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, said this: "I share the serious concerns raised by so many people regarding the broadcast of a racial slur during the BAFTA ceremony on Sunday evening. As the public would expect, I have raised this matter with the BBC Director-General. I welcome the launch of a full investigation by the BBC. Broadcasting a racial slur is completely unacceptable and harmful. The BBC must ensure that this never happens again." Little-known changes to passport rules came into effect today. Under the new rules, British dual nationals who don't have a valid British passport could be stopped from entering the UK. It's set to impact many Brits who live abroad, who rely on coming back to the country using a foreign passport. Our correspondent Adele Robinson has more details.
From today, the UK's border system goes digital. If you don't have the right paperwork, effectively, you won't be getting on the plane. It's what's known as the ETA scheme, which is now being enforced, which stands for Electronic Travel Authorisation. Visitors from 85 countries around the world who do not need visas must apply online for permission before they travel to the UK. It costs £16, it lasts for 2 years, and they're mostly approved within just a couple of minutes. So it's a pretty straightforward system, unless you're a dual British national who's only just found out about the changes. If you're a dual British national around the world, you cannot apply for an ETA. Dual nationals must either have a British passport or what's known as a certificate of entitlement, which costs up to £600. What they've used to do was travel on a foreign passport. They can't do that anymore. And this is one of the big issues around this story today. It's over communication, criticism of the government for poor communication. It's criticised and described as haphazard with poor planning. Now, the people we've spoken to today around the world have only just found out about it within the last month, some of them, including Patsy, who lives in New Zealand with her children and husband. She's from England. She has dual citizenship, but her mum sadly suddenly died on Sunday, and she's found herself unable to get her family back to the UK for the funeral. This is what she had to say.
We didn't ask, well, my kids especially didn't ask to be a dual citizen. This has been forced on them, and, you know, they can't travel to their grandma's funeral the way it stands at the moment. But, you know, we just want to get there and see my mum. You know, you only get one mum at the end of the day, and I just want to get home and see her. It's not a lot to ask.
So the new scheme was introduced in 2023, but it wasn't strictly enforced. It wasn't until last November when the government decided that actually today, in February, would be the day when the ETA scheme would go live. Now, again, amid all these accusations of bad communication and poor planning, people who've been caught out by this system, as well as some of the Liberal Democrats and ABTA, the trade association for the UK, have all called for a grace period. It's not clear, though, how many may have been caught out or how many may well be caught out. There are reports suggesting that there are well over 1 million dual nationals around the world, and it very much depends on if they got the message in time to do anything about it, to get those British passports in place. Now, we've spoken to the Home Office. They've said that the Minister for Migration has said that the scheme is vital to strengthen border security and be more efficient.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight, I speak to the family looking to raise funds for a potentially life-saving operation for their son in the United States. Plus, total chaos, a warning that AI is getting out of control. "15-year-old Harley was born with an extremely rare genetic disorder that affects his spine, spondylocarpal synostosis syndrome. At the time of his diagnosis, only 25 cases worldwide had ever been recorded. Well, it's left Harley with a number of serious health problems, including deafness, impaired eyesight, and a twisted spine that is crushing his vital organs. Unfortunately, Harley's condition has been deemed inoperable in the UK, but his family have hope. A spinal surgeon in New York says he has devised a surgical plan that could save Harley's life. Now a GoFundMe campaign has been launched to try to raise the £2.5 million it will cost. I've been speaking to Harley and his family.
We got a diagnosis when he was 5, and at the time he was 1 in 25 in the world to be diagnosed. So it affects his spine. He's got scoliosis, lordosis, kyphosis, fused vertebra, fused carpal bones in his wrist, tarsal bones in his feet. He's got severe hearing loss, and it affects his vision, which are the main areas. Obviously, his spine has been the worst part of everything, but it affects his whole body. It's more of a fusion of a lot of his bones.
You've described his spine as like a twisted tree.
Yeah.
And what's the effect on that?
So over the years, obviously he's declined. At first, you wouldn't know he had a disability. But as he's getting older, obviously, children grow and they grow in their back. And as he has aged, it sort of deforms more.
And affects his organs? And
yeah, it's since, you know, the surgery he had, his organs have been impacted.
Harley sits here now. 15, right, Harley?
Yeah.
15-year-old Spurs fan. Good to have a fellow Spurs fan in the studio. We've got to stick together. Right, times are tough at the moment. But when you talk about that diagnosis at 5 and how it's developed now to when he's 15, what point are you at the moment, Kelly? Because Harley has had some surgery, but surgeons here in the UK have said he is now inoperable. Is that right?
Yeah. So the first hospital that was under, he was under them for 10 years, and obviously we got to 2017 and they said we needed an anterior spinal fusion because the lordosis, which obviously pushes inwards to his organs, was told, you know, they could be crushed. So, of course, we went for this operation, but unfortunately it worked completely against us and he rapidly deteriorated over time. We then got a second opinion from another hospital. So we went in the appointment very optimistic, and I'll never forget walking in there, and the first thing after he examined Harley, he said to us is, Harley needs to leave the room for this part. And obviously I was like, oh my God, like... but it was a blow, and since then it's been a blow after blow after blow with his health, and it's just like, how much more can we take as a family, but more so Harley and his little body.
So your research started again, looking to find a way, because to hear that Harley cannot have any further treatment in the UK, you looked abroad. What did you find?
So around Christmas time, I thought, this is the last Christmas I'm going to have my son. And it was a very depressing time, but I thought at the same time I need to make memories with him. Because I'd done everything I could possibly do, you know, more than a lot of people would have done. To then come to the new year and get an email from Mr. Lenke's team saying he wants to Zoom call you, and I was like, wow, this has got to be good, surely. And the first thing he said, I can help your son.
What was that like?
Like, it's just, this whole thing has been just such a roller coaster of emotions. Like, I'm up, then I'm down, and we was on cloud.
Preparing to say goodbye.
Yeah.
To your son, and then you get this
the miracle
this call.
That I've been praying for every night.
This is the dream call for your family and for Harley. There is a treatment plan. There is the promise of an improvement of quality of life, of extended life. You get to keep Harley. But there is a catch.
Yeah.
And this is where people watching this interview come in. Talk to me about what it's going to take to get Harley to that programme of surgery in New York.
So obviously, the 8th of January, we had this Zoom call, and we was on cloud 9, you know, started posting every day, you know, because we knew it was going to cost. I think it was 4 days later. We then got the bill for £2.5 million. Now, you know, most people in this world don't have the resource to get that money. Like, how I was just knocked down, like, to ground level, and I was like, it just feels like every time we get a little inch of hope, I get a barrier straight back in my face again. And I was very honest, I did a post and I was broken. I said, I can't do this. Like, I'm one person, like, you know, I just wish I could give him my lungs. I wish I could give him my back, because I'd do it in a heartbeat. It's just not that easy. And I was devastated, and, you know, I was very, very honest with people on social media, but straight away everyone brought me back up and said, you're not alone anymore, you can do this, we're together, we're Harley's army and we can do this. So, as I said, it's been an emotional roller coaster with so many different things going on in the background, but every day since then I've been fighting, and so has everyone else.
What does life look like if you don't raise that money?
We're going to lose him.
Yeah, I've done that.
We're going to lose him. And not even bang, gone, slowly, painfully, losing all quality of life, gone. And he's lost so much already, you know. A lot of people know he loves dancing. He's slowly lost all these functions, but still with such a lively, bright, vibrant soul, like, happy, cares for everyone else before himself. I refuse to lose any more of him, because he's still got a life to live. And as I said, he's such a beautiful soul. He makes everyone else happy. Like, his dad was a little bit upset before we come here, and he picked up on that straight away, and all he wanted to do was comfort his daddy. I refuse to lose any more of my child.
Well, let's get down to the numbers. You need to raise £2.5 million to get Harley to New York. How do people help you? Because you want to raise awareness, spread the story, And if people are in a position to help, they should and they can. How can they do that?
So obviously we've got a GoFundMe and we're trying to raise the funds and awareness at the same time. I don't want any other child to go through what he has and the pain and suffering that he faces every day. But yeah, we're just raising awareness. People are doing videos.
I've seen Harley with James Madison. Oh, James Madison.
We've got to talk about that
Spurs one. is a big part of the Harley army.
I had a bad day. You know, I do have bad days where I'm like, well, if I can't do this, my reality is going to be that he's no longer with me. So I did a post. I was like, you're not going to see this, but if I don't try, I won't know. So I just put a post out on X and said, because Harley's thing is a cup of tea and an M&S custard cream, and the nation know it.
Boy after my own heart.
Yeah.
Good choice of biscuit.
And I just said, would you have a cup of tea with Harley and just make his dream come true? Because his favourite player, James Madison, and not even 48 hours later, people are tagging me in this video, and he posted, and we've been for that cup of tea. And not only did he, you know, took the time out and spent half time at the game with us, he got VIP treatment, Harley did, but he made his cup of tea for him, and you know, that's a memory that we'll have forever. And it's just, I'm just blown away by the support and love that we've had so far. But it's not enough to save his life at the minute. But that's why we'll take any opportunity we can to. Every day, I don't know how many times I explain his story, and I'll keep saying it.
Yeah.
As long as there's air in my lungs, I've told him that I'll tell your story. And as long as he wakes up every day, he's brave, he's strong, and he fights for me, that I'll be his voice and I will fight for him.
Kelly, there are so many different events going on to fundraise for Harley, but if people want to go and find out more information, where should they click?
So it's Hope for Harley, or Harley's Army. If you have a look on any platforms, you'll be able to find us on there. But yeah, it's Hope for Harley, and we have Hope for Harley, so it's in the name.
Well, it's a huge total the family need, but they have huge hope. If you want to be part of Harley's Army, here is the GoFundMe page. You can see they've raised over 450,000 so far. I've been watching it since I did the interview, and it's slowly been creeping up. It's an incredible amount that's already been raised by the family and Harley's Army that is, you know, UK-wide now, but they need to get to that £2.5 million. So, as Kelly said, if you can donate, please do. That is the GoFundMe page, Hope for Harley, running out of time for life-saving treatment. Good luck to the Harris family. What a lovely family they are. Now, the world's leading artificial intelligence research lab is warning that AI could be on the way to total chaos. What exactly does that mean? Our correspondent Roland Manthorpe has been exploring whether the development of AI is leading that technology down a dangerous path.
You know, with AI, it is so important to stay level-headed and not get freaked out by each new announcement. But have you seen this chart? This is a chart by a non-profit called Meta, which basically assesses the software development skills of each new AI model. And yeah, it has people in tech somewhere roughly between a little bit spooked and getting the bunker ready. So many questions. One, is AI actually starting to improve itself? Have we entered the science fiction scenario where it is rewriting its own code and turning itself into an all-powerful superintelligence? I mean, really, this is the question. I asked Joel Becker from Meta whether he thought that AI was improving itself, and he said that he didn't think so. But
AI tools are meaningfully speeding up. I want to communicate that the situation is serious, that it's fast moving.
And the other question is, so if AI is this good, what about all the jobs? So this is a chart of AI models doing software tasks. And you can see for a long time, nothing really much happened. For years and years, in fact. They were very good at chatting, or they were getting better at chatting, but they weren't actually really doing much, even in their native realm of code. And then roughly about kind of 2025, things start to improve a little. If you've been using AI like chatbots, which is what most people are using, then you probably won't have spotted this improvement. They're getting better, yeah, sure, but it doesn't feel dramatic. It's the people on the frontier of software development who are using AI agents to write their own code who are really seeing these startling increases. But in a way, something that I find even stranger is that this doesn't actually represent off-the-charts progress. Let me show you this chart on a log scale, which is a much better format for really representing exponential curves. And what you see when you look at this is that, roughly speaking, the progress is in fact steady. Sometimes a little bit below the line, sometimes a little bit above it. But really, AI is just improving in its normal way. But because it's an exponential, it feels sudden and shocking to us. This chart is far from perfect. It's got a lot of holes in it. For one thing, this is measuring the length of task that an AI can complete 50% of the time. And if you think about it, being able to complete a task 50% of the time is actually not that useful at all, especially in a business context. And then, of course, there's the placement of the dots. This is actually extremely uncertain. You know, the biggest problem they have is actually finding tasks that are hard enough for AI. But in fact, when you look at the jobs data on this, there's something of a mystery because we can't really see the AI effect at all. This is a chart of software development job postings on Indeed. If you want to see what's happened in the last year, well, it's this. Not that big an effect. And actually, postings for software development jobs are going up. So what's going on? Well, it could be that this technology just isn't that good after all. It could be that it's fantastic and it's going to be mass automation, but it's just delayed a little bit. But there is a third option, that in fact, when we can have something easily, we want lots more of it. So it may well be that actually AI means more software development jobs. What about all the other jobs that AI seems bound to touch? It might well be that actually the real world is much more messier and complicated than we expect. And as a result, diffusion of this technology takes longer than we think. The warning from these guys is that this stuff is coming like a train, that we all need to be ready.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight. In the sport, history made. Bo Greaves hits the first ever 9-darter by a woman on the PDC Pro Tour.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. It takes 60 minutes to cross the Irish Sea. It took the British monarchy a century. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
The political parties of Northern Ireland have reached agreement.
If there's anyone who might know how to fix Northern Ireland's devolved government, it's the American architect.
Changes in circumstance require changes in approach.
The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland.
I confirmed that I am willing to take up the office of First Minister. My election to the post of First Minister demonstrates the change that's happening on this island.
Catholics and Protestants on different sides, now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19 and end up in hospital, religion's nothing.
People here are adept at finding hope amid adversity. That's the spirit of a place that punches way above its weight. We help you understand the world with us. A toxic blue-green algae now poisoning Loch Ness. It's breaking your heart what has happened here.
It is.
This is a vital resource, a national treasure, now fighting for its very life. They are effectively surrounded by Northern Ireland, and that makes this the most unlikely of international frontiers.
If there's a hard border, I think it'll cripple the country.
Winter is coming. Welcome to Winterfell. It's an iconic location in this globally acclaimed drama. Ophelia was the most powerful hurricane this far east in the Atlantic on record. Sky News, the full story first.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand,
Wow.
here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Tell us who you're looking for.
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shots rang out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
Right, let's take a look at the sport. Darmish is here because something extremely exciting has been happening in the world of darts. Bo Greaves, a name you may not have heard before, but she has done something historic today.
This is an incredible story, Sarah-Jane. Bo Greaves, nicknamed Bow and Arrow, because I think you have to give the nickname when you're a darts player, don't you?
See what they've done there.
She has created history, yeah. And she's become the first woman to hit a 9-darter in a PDC Pro Tour. I think we can see it now. She did it at the Players' Championship in Leicester on her way to beating Mensur Suljovic. Now, this is how she did it. It's 2 maximum 180s. It left her with a 1-4-1 checkout. And that resulted in a treble 20. This is the second 180, by the way. A treble 20 for the checkout, followed by a treble 19, which she later had said she just about got it. But look, it looks like it's in there. And then a double 12. It's one of the most underrated. Look at that celebration.
She is as cool as a cucumber. What a cool customer she is.
We gave her a little bow, so that was nice. Incredible moment. 22
Oh, look, it's just sinking in there.
Yeah, 22 years old. And she just carried on with the match. And she did win that match, actually, so she kept her cool. You remember her performances meant she qualified for the World Darts Championships at Ali Pali earlier on this year. And she is on an incredible run in the women's game at the moment. She has won 113 matches in a row and won 17 consecutive titles. Remember back in the day there was Fallon Sherrock?
Yep.
She was the queen of the palace. Yep. Bo Greaves is really the top player in the women's game at the moment, and she is really making a mark. And for her to get a 9-darter is absolutely extraordinary. So a record-breaking day for Bo Greaves. Incredible story, and a few other incredible stories with the rest of the sport as well.
Love him, hate him, you can't ignore him. And now, after over 12 years, Roy Keane's Old Trafford career has come to a dramatic end.
And what I remember about that day is that Sir Alex Ferguson had his usual press conference at Carrington on the Friday morning. Nothing significant, no real business to talk about.
Metatarsal bones are they're pretty fragile really. He's on the way back anyway, and I think probably 2 or 3 weeks for him.
We're literally 5 minutes up the road away from the press conference and a statement is released. Roy Keane is leaving Man United, so we basically had a press conference, not mentioned it, waited till we all left the training ground, and then that was it.
It was a very amicable meeting with Roy and myself, and my best player in my time, but probably one of the best players ever in the history of the club.
So close in the past, now Sir Alex Ferguson must begin the search for a replacement.
He's a talismanic player for us, captain, won a lot with us, and unfortunately he left and we had to do it. That's the same in any football club. You're always, keeping it fluid, keeping it sort of up to date and changing every time. So I think we were prepared for it, put it that way.
United hadn't won the title since 2003. Chelsea were blowing everybody out of the water at that point. Roman Abramovich, Jose Mourinho were coming as coach. They were buying all the best players, and United were going after players. I think Michael Ballack, Michael Essien, Arjen Robben, all these players that United lined up, and they went to Chelsea. They're now trying to replace Roy Keane, knowing that as soon as they identify a player, Chelsea might take him.
Michael Carrick, when did he first enter the club's radar?
That was
Well, finally tonight, for many of us, there was a welcome surprise today, the return of an old friend, the sun. After weeks of gloomy weather, the highest temperature of the year so far was recorded this afternoon. The Greater London area seeing most of the sunshine. Kew Gardens reaching a balmy 18.6 degrees. That is the highest figure for February in the UK since 2019, when 19.2 degrees was recorded. First rays of sunshine and we are transformed as a nation. But how long is it going to last? Let's find out.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
And not long was what was whispered in my ear just before I came to this graphic. Well, the mild theme is going to continue this week. Strong winds and rain at times, though. Southern Britain, mainly a fine, dry evening, but elsewhere, showery outbreaks of rain, most prolonged over Scotland. There'll be further showers overnight, especially in the north, but the southeast will remain dry. The west of Ireland, more prolonged rain there later, moving in on strengthening winds. That rain will mostly clear across Ireland and Northern Ireland tomorrow morning to affect western Scotland, northwest England and West Wales. Elsewhere, largely dry, some bright spells, but northern and central parts could expect a few showers. Windy and mild, temperatures will be lower than today's, I'm afraid.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, that's all from the UK tonight. Just a little reminder about the Harris family. Harley looking for life-changing surgery. We brought that interview earlier on in the programme. The GoFundMe page, there it is. Over £400,000 raised of their £2.5 million target. Hope for Harley is how you can search for that GoFundMe page. You can continue to see that interview on our website and on our social platforms. That is all from us. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Up next, it is The World with Yalda. I'll see you tomorrow.